On a night meant for gratitude, a mother's last $20 trembled in her hand. Across a rain-lashed diner, 5 giants walked in, bringing the room to a terrified standstill. But in the shadow of their violence, a secret pain was waiting, and it would rewrite all of their fates before the night was through. The storm over Detroit wasn't just weather. It was a feeling. A cold, relentless punishment falling from a bruised autumn sky. Beneath the glow of streetlights that painted the wet pavement in streaks of orange and yellow, the city moved in a haze of holiday cheer. Laughter echoed from families hurrying with pie boxes, their breaths forming clouds in the air. Jazz melodies drifted from doorways, wrapping the world in a lie of universal warmth. Through this curtain of rain, a silent trio moved unseen. Nia's hand tightened around the small, cold fingers of her twins, Malik and Thery. Her beautiful face, usually so resilient, was pale with a fatigue that went deeper than bone. Their thin hoodies were plastered to their small frames, offering no defense against the chill. Every few steps, her free hand would dip into her purse, her fingertips finding the single folded $20 bill. The touch was a prayer, a desperate confirmation that the last of her hope was still physically present. She stopped before a corner diner, a cube of golden light in the gray gloom. Inside, a world of steaming plates and easy smiles. The clatter of cutlery was a foreign language of abundance. Malik and Thery stared, their deep brown eyes wide with a hunger that wasn't just for food. It was for the warmth, the normalcy, the safety of that light. Nia took a breath that shuddered in her chest and pushed the door open. A wall of heated air hit them, a shock that made the children sigh, but with the warmth came the glances. Brief, assessing flickers from other customers that took in their soaked clothes, their weary postures, then politely darted away. Nia guided them to a corner table, a fragile island in the sea of noise. A waitress dropped menus and vanished. Nia opened the menu. The numbers swam before her eyes. Burgers, pot roast, steak, each price a small, sharp knife. Her heart began a frantic drum against her ribs. She counted the money again. $20. The math was a cruel, inescapable cage. If she fed them, nothing remained for the bus for tomorrow. If the bill was more. She shut the thought down, a wave of nausea rising in her throat. She looked up. The children were tracing the glossy pictures with their fingers, whispering excitedly about meals they would not have. They didn't. In the diner's far corner, a different energy radiated. 5 massive men, wrestlers, occupied a large booth. Their laughter was a booming thunder that drowned out softer conversations. One of them, a man with a quiet intensity that contrasted his formidable size, noticed the small family. His eyes, used to assessing opponents, tracked Nia's nervous movements, the long stares at the menu, the repeated, furtive check of her purse. He saw the children's hopeful faces, the damp fabric of their sleeves. He said nothing, but his focus narrowed, locking onto their silent struggle. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to LostBlack for more dark and emotional stories. Nia raised a hesitant hand. The waitress returned with an impatient tilt of her head. "1 soup, please," Nia whispered, the words ash in her mouth. "And a basket of bread." "Mom?" Thery asked, her small voice confused. "Aren't you eating?" Nia crafted a smile, a fragile, trembling thing. "I ate earlier, baby." "This is for you." It was a lie they all heard, a ghost that settled over the table. The children's excitement dimmed. Beneath the table, Nia gripped their small hands, as if she could pour the last of her strength into them through touch alone. Across the room, the wrestler watched. He had seen brutality in rings and back alleys, but this quiet, dignified unraveling was a different kind of violence. The blues music on the diner's speaker felt like a mockery. The waitress brought a single bowl of soup and 1 piece of bread. Steam rose, a cruel mirage of plenty. The children ate with the swift, focused fear of those who know scarcity. Malik broke his bread in half, extending it. "Please, Mom." She shook her head, her stomach cramping painfully. The wrestler saw it all, the refusal, the forced smile, the tears she quickly swiped away when she thought no one saw. An old memory, sharp and serrated, twisted in his chest. His massive hands tightened on the edge of his table. The children finished. The empty bowl was a silent verdict. Nia's heart hammered as she saw the waitress pick up a slip of paper from the counter and start toward them. This was it. The moment of exposure. She fumbled the $20 bill from her purse, her hands shaking so violently the paper seemed alive. The waitress was 10 steps away. 5. Then, a sound like thunder cracking, the violent scrape of a heavy chair being shoved back. The entire diner flinched. The wrestler was on his feet, his towering frame uncoiling to its full, intimidating height. Conversations died. Every eye followed him as his heavy footfalls echoed on the tile. A steady, ominous drumbeat heading straight for Nia's table. Nia froze. The blood drained from her face. The children shrunk back into their seats, their eyes huge with fear. "He's coming for us," her mind screamed. The $20 bill slipped from her fingers, fluttering to the table like a dying leaf. He stopped beside her chair. The air grew thick. Then, gently, he placed a large, calloused hand on her trembling shoulder. He leaned down, his voice a low, steady rumble that only their table could hear. "Don't you worry about a thing tonight," he said. "All of this is on me." For a second, the words held no meaning. Then they crashed into her. A sob tore from her throat. "No, I can pay," she stammered, pride and panic at war. "I have to." He shook his head, and for the first time, she saw past the intimidating exterior. His eyes held a profound, weary kindness. "You've paid enough," he said softly. "Let me do this." The diner was utterly, profoundly silent. He picked up her $20 bill and pressed it back into her palm, folding her fingers over it. "You keep that. You earned it." Tears streamed down Nia's face, unchecked. She was beyond words. The wrestler turned and walked to the counter, his presence now commanding a different kind of respect. He placed a stack of bills on the register. "Their bill is covered. And bring them the best food you've got. Burgers, fries, cake, milk, everything." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Whispers erupted. The waitress nodded, wide-eyed, and rushed to the kitchen. Nia pulled her children to her, holding them as her body shook with silent weeping. "Mom, is that man an angel?" Malik whispered into her chest. "Tonight," Nia cried softly, "I believe he is." A feast arrived. Plates piled high, steam rising, colors vibrant. The children's disbelief turned to pure, radiant joy. Nia stared at the bounty, then at the wrestler, struggling to anchor herself in this new, impossible reality. He approached again. "Tonight isn't just about Thanksgiving," he said, his voice thick. "It's about not being alone." Nia stood, her legs unsteady. She joined her hands, her gratitude a physical force. "I will never forget this. Never." His own eyes glistened. "I know," he whispered back. "Because a long time ago, I was the kid at that table." A silence fell, deeper than before. Then, from a booth in the back, a single person began to clap. Another joined. Another. Soon, the entire diner was filled with the sound of applause, not for spectacle, but for a shared moment of restored humanity. The applause faded, but the echo of it shifted something in the wrestler. As he returned to his friends, his face was a mask of distant pain. The celebration at his table had cooled into concerned silence. "You all right, man?" one friend asked. The wrestler stared at his glass, seeing another place, another time. "When I saw her tears," he began, his voice rough, "I saw my mother." He told them then, the story bleeding out. A cracked apartment in a forgotten part of Detroit. A roof that leaked more than it sheltered. A mother whose hands were always raw, her back always bent. One cold night, she'd taken him to a cafe, a few wrinkled dollars in her purse. She'd ordered one soup. He'd asked why she wasn't eating. She'd given him that same trembling smile Nia had worn. When the bill came, she was short. The waitress had scoffed. Other patrons had snickered. His mother had broken down, apologizing to the floor, and he, a small, powerless boy, could do nothing but watch. That night, the wrestler said, "I promised myself I would never be weak again. And I would never stand by when someone was drowning like that." He learned to fight. His body became a weapon, his name a brand. But the memory of his mother's shame never left. It was the engine of his strength and its anchor. Seeing that woman tonight, if I'd stayed in my seat, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. As he finished, Nia approached, her children beside her. "You gave us more than food," she said, fresh tears coming. "You gave us back our dignity." He nodded, a single tear tracing the hard line of his cheek. In absolving her, he felt a piece of his own past soften, a weight he'd carried for decades finally shift. But the night was not finished testing them. As they stepped out into the freezing rain, the warmth of the diner was snatched away by a vicious wind. The street was a dark, wet tunnel. The children huddled close, and from the shadows across the road, 4 figures detached themselves. Their laughter was sharp, predatory. "Looks like Santa came early for some folks," the lead one called, his eyes on Nia's worn purse. "Why don't you share the holiday spirit?" Nia's blood ran cold. She pulled her children behind her. The wrestler didn't speak. He simply stepped forward, placing his body as a shield. The move was fluid, absolute. "Big guy wants to play hero," a second man sneered, stepping closer. "It's 4-on-1. The wrestler's voice was dangerously calm. "You should be grateful it's only me." One lunged. It was over in a blur of violent efficiency. A wrist was caught and twisted. A body slammed onto the wet asphalt. A punch landed with a sickening crack. A second man dropped. The remaining 2 stumbled back, their bravado shattered into pure fear. "If you ever prey on someone vulnerable again," the wrestler growled, the promise in his voice colder than the rain, "you won't get back up." They fled. Nia stood trembling, her children sobbing quietly into her coat. The wrestler turned, his demeanor shifting instantly. "It's over," he said gently. "You're safe." At that moment, his friends burst from the diner. Seeing the scene, their faces hardened. They surrounded the family, a wall of protective muscle. The wrestler looked at Nia, who was shaking from shock and cold. "Where's your home?" he asked. The question undid her. We don't really have one." "A rented room. I'm behind, I clean houses but the work." She trailed off, the confession hanging in the icy air. The wrestler was silent for a long moment. The old ache in his chest tightened, then resolved into certainty. "You're not going back there tonight." Fear and hope warred in Nia's eyes. "I can't ask for more." "You didn't ask," he stated. "I have a secure place. Just for tonight. You'll be warm, and the kids can sleep without fear. Tomorrow, we figure the rest out." "Mom," Thery whispered, looking up at the giant who had become their protector. "Can we? I'm so cold." That small voice decided it. Nia nodded, the last of her resistance crumbling. Just for tonight, his SUV was a fortress of warmth. The children, lulled by the heater and the sudden, overwhelming safety, fell asleep in the back seat before they'd crossed the city limits. Nia watched their peaceful faces in the rearview mirror, tears of sheer relief streaming silently down her cheeks. "From tomorrow," the wrestler said, his eyes meeting hers in the reflection, "things change. No more worrying about survival. We'll find you real work, a stable home. The kids will go to a good school." "Why?" The question burst from her, filled with a lifetime of mistrust for sudden grace. "Why would you do all that?" He was quiet for a long moment, the city lights sliding over his scarred knuckles on the steering wheel. "Because no one did it for us," he said finally. "And I won't let your kids grow up with that same hollow feeling in their guts." They arrived at a guarded, clean-lined building. A doorman nodded respectfully. The apartment was simple, but to Nia, it was a palace. Soft beds, thick blankets, a silence that promised security, not dread. She sat in a chair between the beds, watching her children sleep deeply, their faces finally relaxed. She didn't sleep. She kept vigil over this impossible peace. Morning light, pale and gentle, washed the room. The children woke, confused, then dazzled. "Is this a dream, Mom?" Before she could answer, a soft knock. The wrestler entered with a tray, warm milk, eggs, toast, and a shopping bag full of new winter clothes. "Happy Thanksgiving," he said, his voice softer than they'd ever heard it. The room filled with the sound of genuine laughter, a sound so foreign it felt sacred. After breakfast, he asked Nia to speak with him. "The arrangements are made," he said calmly. "The school accepts the children starting Monday. The job center is expecting you. It's administrative, respectful. And there's a house." Her legs buckled. He caught her arm, steadying her. "A house?" "A home," he corrected. "It's yours." Later, they stood before a small, tidy house with a blue door. It was modest, but it was solid. It was theirs. The children burst inside, their laughter echoing off walls that would now hold their memories. Nia stood on the threshold, weeping, unable to cross from one life into the other. As dusk settled, the wrestler prepared to leave. The children clung to him. "You'll come back, right?" He knelt, bringing himself to their level. "I'll always be around. You're not alone anymore." Nia faced him, a universe of gratitude trapped in her chest. "You didn't just save us. You rebuilt us." He offered a soft, sad smile. "No," he whispered. "You gave me back a piece of my soul I thought was lost forever." Then he was gone, swallowed by the twilight. Nia stood in the doorway for a long time. The cold air swirled, but it could not reach the new, permanent warmth inside her. The longest night of her life had finally, miraculously, ended. Sometimes, salvation doesn't arrive as a whisper, but as a storm. It walks in with a fearsome face, scarred by its own past battles, and chooses to fight for a light it sees flickering in someone else's darkness. That cold Detroit night, a bill was paid, but more importantly, a debt to humanity was settled. An act of understanding, born from ancient pain, rerouted 3 destinies. Remember, even in the darkest corridors of life, a single moment of courageous kindness can be the light that leads all the way home. If this journey into darkness and redemption resonated with you, subscribe to LostBlack for more stories that explore the profound, often hidden, resilience of the human spirit.